Hey, friends. Thanks for tuning in again this week. I got a really fun interview with Michael here for you. Just real quick before starting it, I wanted to pop in to just say thank you very much to all the people who have in the past and are currently supporting the show directly via financial um, assistance. Why do I feel like I need to be careful with how I say that? Thanks for sending in money. That's what I'm saying, really. I want to just directly thank Jim, Sarah, Rod, MD, John Charles, Jeremy, JD, Carol, Camille, Bradley, Andrew, Alec, and Alan. Um, One of the things, and also Mike and Ted, who have been past helpers in this way as well, who have sent money into the show in the past too. Just thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I hope that you've all been able to get at least a couple of the prize drawings here and there to kind of make that fun and air quotes worth it, as it were. But also, part of what I've used that money for is hopefully improving the sound, the offering that the show has here, the sound quality and things like that. So, like I'm talking to you right now through a nicer mic than the one with which I started the show. And I have recently been investing more time and money in the software side of processing the show. I hope that that has translated into an improvement in sound quality. And here today, this episode, I'm kind of using as a test for further development. So the first half of this show has processing as I have been processing it more recently, as I've been improving sort of my understanding of how the DAW that I'm working in chiefly works and things like that. But the second half of it, I've applied yet more post work. And I kind of don't want to get too specific about what I did up front because I'm curious to know if you have the time and inclination, if you feel like writing into the show either via social media or via email, all our handles and stuff like that will be in the show notes. Can you tell a difference between the first half of this episode and the second half? Hopefully the transition from the first half to second won't be quite noticeable. But if it is noticeable, can you tell the difference? And also, do you have a strong preference? Was one more pleasant to listen to than the other? Did you prefer hearing the way that it comes out in the first half versus the second half? Yeah, if you notice a difference and if you have a preference, write in and let me know, because depending on what people like, more I will know better where to direct these funds that you wonderful folks have been sending in to the show, and I really appreciate that. Thank you again. So that's all I wanted to say, and having already forced you to sit through this, I won't interrupt the interview later, so just keep in mind you can follow the show wherever you like. You can write in with suggestions for future guests, and of course you can also help support the show on Patreon, and otherwise we also accept discarded bagpipes, gold bullion, checks by mail, etc. So thanks again. Have a great week, and I hope you enjoy the interview, and you're a lovely person. Goodbye. Kind of cleaning stuff up back there, and I was catching up on the Big Rab show. I still hadn't listened to Eric's interview with him yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's really convenient that as you and I are about to talk, he mentioned the Heathen Highlanders.
Right.
The first time I found out about the Heathen Highlanders was when I saw that video you guys did at the Hale Theater, with the circular
at the Hale Center
stage.
Theater, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was cool, man.
That was cool.
Tell me a little bit about that thing, and tell me about the Heathen Highlanders, and then maybe we'll work backward from there.
Okay. Well, that video, we had been hired they were doing a production of Brigadoon.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, they only need one piper for the show, but Hale Center Theater does morning shows and then they do matinees. And so I went and talked with the theater owners, and I said, we want to do this video on the stage in between shows. So there's about an hour in between shows is all, and they have to, of course, prep the theater and everything, and do all their resets and all of that. But so I had the rest of the guys all come down, and I don't remember whether I had played the morning show and someone else was playing the afternoon, or the matinee show and then someone else was playing the evening, or what exactly. But I walked into the stage manager's office and I said, "Okay, this is what I want to do." And I hurried and gave him a quick layout and told him what I needed him to do. And he said, "Okay." And I think I think the video that we posted is our second take. I think we did it in 2 takes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Well, it went out.
They
It turned out great. It looks really good. Actually, I'm just poking around the internet right now. It's I think that's your profile image on Instagram is from that video. Actually,
Oh, it might
Vipers
be.
coming out of the mist.
Yeah, yeah. It was fun. I was like, "Okay, look, we need to bring the stage up in multiple sections, and I want it rotating and fill the cavern underneath the stage there is massive." And they just laid the fog on. They had that so thick you couldn't see.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to imagine that was a little weird to be playing your pipes in that much fog.
Well, that's I figured, okay, well, we'll be able to see each other at least, and even Dave Glad and I standing right there across from each other in the center, um, 2-3 feet apart. I couldn't see him
All
at
audio at
all.
that point.
Yeah,
I'm
it was just listening to one another, going, "Okay."
You probably had secondhand fog machine fog coming out the ends of your drones by the time
Oh,
you're,
I'm
you're
sure.
racing up out of there.
I'm sure. So that was fun. That was a quick last minute thing. And the crew there at Hale was professional as ever,
Yeah,
and like I said, we didn't do any run throughs or anything because we didn't have time. They threw that together and followed my direction and saw what it was I was trying to accomplish, and just nailed it each time
yeah,
with because they had to do that all in the shows. They have most of their cues pre-programmed,
right,
so
yeah,
they're just managing the board and the buttons. But this one, he had to do it all manually, individually, each individual component, and the stage manager and the stage crew over there knocked it out for us
yeah. They pulled it off.
quite nicely. Yep.
I'll put a link to it
So
in the show in the show notes when I post this interview for sure.
cool.
Because
All
it's
right.
cool. It's fun to see.
Tuning's not great, and Unity is not exactly there at the beginning. Just again because we're literally in a hole under the stage, with fog so thick you can't even see your hand in front
I
of your
think
face.
we can all be pretty forgiving of that. It's
Yeah, yeah.
that's isn't that one of the funny things about I don't know if this is true for other art forms as well, but in piping, like you can play in front of a stadium of 2,000 people and
Mhm.
not feel nervous unless you know that one of those people also plays bagpipes.
Is a piper, right?
And then suddenly you're nervous, and it's because of that one person.
For the most part, nobody knows diddly squat about bagpipes.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's always, telling the newbies, look, how many people do you know that outside of the band that know anything at all about bagpipes? So why on earth are you nervous? If you make a
yeah.
glaring flub in something like Amazing Grace or Scott and the Brother, a well-known tune, sure, they might pick up on that. But even that, those people are few and far between.
Yeah, totally.
So
Well, why did you when and why did you start the Heathen Highlanders? What's the group all about?
yeah, well, I've been in most all of the pipe bands locally here over the course of my 30 36 years now, 37.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Started off in the Salt Lake Scots, joined Utah. I actually played in Utah with Andrew Morrell and Ross and all of the
Mm-hmm.
guys that broke off into Wasatch. Kind of done Wasatch by proxy
Oh, there you go.
when they
Yeah.
were all in the Utah pipe band. I even actually played with some of the guys down in your neck of the woods there
Yeah.
in the Garden Valley area. There was at one point they were trying to form the Y Mountain pipe band. There was
Mm-hmm.
a couple different it went by a few different names over the course of the years as it transitioned.
I think it's ended up. I think that at least some iteration of that is now the Thomas Cordner Memorial Pipe Band. Was
Right,
that
right.
after it had been the Mountain Timpanogos for a bit, and then
Mountain Timpanogos, yes, that was the other one. Yep.
yeah,
But so I had been in all the bands, and I had actually stepped away from the bands. I actually stepped away from playing for about 3 years. Yeah, didn't play at all for 3, maybe 4 years. And then a friend of mine, Ian White, landed me a very, very nice set of Hendersons that were built somewhere between 1905 and 1912.
Gee.
And so I started playing again at that point. But I just the band thing requires if you're gonna be in a band, you don't want to be the weakest link, right?
Of course,
So
yeah.
there's there's a time commitment that the band requires, but there's also a time commitment that personally, um, I myself as a piper would require of me to make
Sure.
sure that I
Yeah.
was playing that band repertoire properly and accurately and things like that. And I didn't have the time to invest in both of those aspects to what I thought was proper.
Yeah, it's understandable.
So I hadn't been in a band, but I still enjoyed playing. Back in October of 2005, we we played a few times off and on at the pub downtown called Piper Down.
Perfect place
Um,
for bagpipes.
yeah, yeah. We had played a few times in there off and on. I had played a few weekends and stuff there. And they were having I can't remember whether they had a guest band coming in or something, but owner wanted us to come down and have a little group there and play the break for the band.
Mm.
And it was October of 2005, and I got 3 or 4 guys together, and we went in and we played, and afterwards we kinda said, "Hey, we could kinda do that as a group." 1 or 2 people were not affiliated, a few were affiliated with different pipe bands,
Yeah.
but, we could do this and have it be basically a non-affiliated performance group or mercenary bagpipe group for
A
lack of
mercenary
a
bagpipe
yeah,
group. Nice.
we've been called numerous things over the years. Some of them are suitable for podcasts, some of them are
Yeah.
not. But so basically, yeah, it just became it just kind of started there. We actually kind of stumbled across the name Heathen Highlanders. The wife of one of the members made a flip comment about us being the heathens playing in the bars, and
Mhm.
that kind of stuck. I had another friend that used to play with me in the Utah pipe band that kind of drew up a quick logo, and then I had an additional friend that was heavily into the Scottish athletics and stuff, but also a graphic designer. And
Mhm.
he gave us an official logo. He took that concept and turned it into something sleek and nice looking. And excuse me.
No sweat.
But so that's kind of where it started, was just being a non-affiliated performance group, and it's certainly stayed that way. I pull people in from all of the bands. I we do have a couple of official sites and things like that we utilize to garner gigs, and of course a lot of word of mouth through the bar owners and stuff. That helps a lot. But so I farm out a lot of gigs to additional pipers, even outside of the normal playing group.
Yeah.
Depending on where they're at, I send quite a few down your way to Johnny Miner, and I know I called you on about St. Patrick's Day and to see
Yeah,
if
that's
you
right. Yeah.
might be able to come up and and help out there a little bit.
I had a
You
cushy
know, s-
one this St. Patrick's Day, man. They because
that
they
was
booked me for piping and they booked my folk band as well, and so I got to spend all day in one place. But it was pretty
nice.
sweet.
Yeah, and that's the the thought process behind the Heathen Highlanders is that, and I'm not anti pipe band, formal competition pipe band. I actually grew up in I mean, I was 16 when I started.
Mhm.
So, I quite literally grew up in competitive pipe band. But I think that there's an aspect that some of the bands tend to lose sight of, and that's that musical performance outside of the competition circle.
Mhm.
That's something that, and so the Heathen Highlanders allows for an opportunity to kind of elevate that, for lack of a better word, whether it's all of us, whether it's the whole group of us walking into Piper Down or the Green Pig or a host of the pubs that we play on St. Patrick's Day, or whether it's a solo gig for a funeral or for a wedding or, things like that. That
Yeah, of course.
performance aspect.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that you don't wanna say that it's the fun side of piping and drumming because then that makes it sound like competition isn't fun, and of course it can be fun, but it makes
It, oh,
sense.
it,
It's a different thing, and that's all.
right, right. And unfortunately, I think that some of the bands lean too far into the competition aspect
Right.
to the detriment of those other opportunities. And I'll tell you a couple of quick stories here really
Yeah,
quick.
for sure.
So I got called for a wedding, and this was just after COVID had hit. It's up in Deer Valley. It's a swanky, posh
Mhm.
wedding. So as part of the ceremony, not only was I piping them in and then piping them back out, but as part of the ceremony, both the bride and the groom had lost a grandparent during the COVID,
Mm.
and they had each lost a grandparent. And they, with the social distancing and the nursing homes and things like that, not allowing visitors, that they literally had not been able to go
Go
and
see him and stuff.
see them and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So as part of the ceremony, they actually wanted they were going to have a moment of silence. They were acknowledging the family members and stuff that had helped support them to get them here, and they had a moment of silence for the family members who were no longer there,
Mhm.
that had been supportive as well. And then they had wanted me to play Amazing Grace.
Mhm.
So I did that. And, the moment of silence came, and I got the little nod, and I played through Amazing Grace, and the whole wedding party, everybody, both sides, just wrecked them, just completely like destroyed. They're all sobbing and stuff. And I thought, okay, that was cool. That was nice. They finished the ceremony. I piped them out. Anyway, after the brother of the bride comes up to me, and he says, and he immediately starts getting emotional, and he says, I'm in the military, so I hear Amazing Grace on bagpipes a lot at
Mhm.
service funerals and stuff. And he says, I have no idea what version you played. I have never heard a more gorgeous variation of Amazing Grace ever. And he's weeping at this point. And you can tell this guy's an army ranger or something, just to the physique and the mannerisms that he carries himself with. He's not just the guy in the military. He's in the military, but he's just crying, saying that was the most beautiful variation I've ever heard. And I said, well, thank you very much. I played the WUSPBA mass band set.
Yeah, that's how that
I,
goes to
I, I,
it.
gu- I guarantee he's heard that version before. I did
Yeah.
nothing different other than just being aware of the situation and the moment and the history behind it that the family was trying to convey,
Right.
and just played it accordingly, right? Played it with the proper respect and and thoughts behind it that moment deserves, and that apparently came out in the music, right? Another story, I did a gig for Veterans Day down in Draper. They had a little flag shield set up for all the Draper veterans and things like that, and they
Mhm.
had me come down and play the military anthems and stuff. So I went down and I did that, and just as I was leaving, an older gentleman and several of his family members came walking across the parking lot, and he said, "Oh, did I miss you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I technically am done playing, but what would you like to hear?" And he was a veteran. I don't remember which branch of the military he was in, but through us chatting, so I played him his particular military anthem, and then I did, I think, something like Amazing Grace or Black Bear or something like that. Anyway, and he said, "Thank you so much," and we kind of parted and went our ways. Well, about 6 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. This guy, so he was in town visiting other relatives and happened to see that Draper was doing this, so he decided to go down and see this on Veterans Day as a veteran himself. But he was so moved by my taking the time to play for him and personalizing it with the anthem for the branch that he had served and things like that. When he was from like New Mexico. When he got done, he actually called Draper City and tracked down who was in charge of the event and managed to get my information from them.
He
And
went through a lot of work, jeez.
he went through a lot of work
Yeah.
and he sent me this gorgeous letter talking about how that had made his Veterans Day and how he wasn't looking forward to it because he had been out of town and wasn't able to do some of the things that he does normally,
Mm.
at home and in his own hometown and things like that. But literally, like, went through this whole process to find me and send me a letter and photographs that they had taken of the flag field and things like that. So I didn't think hardly anything of the encounter. He just wanted to hear me play something,
Mm.
but I took the time to do that, and again, it kind of came out in the music, and it was impactful and meaningful for this gentleman to the point that he went home and quite literally put on the Sherlock Holmes hat and detective his way
Yeah,
through
that's right.
finding me, right? I mean, I've got that letter in my pipe case because that's cooler to me than any score sheet I've ever gotten in a competition, right? That's so there's those opportunities that I think that when the pipe bands hyper focus on the competitive aspect of it, I think that you tend to lose some of those, and that's okay within the organization, but the individual pipers within the organization don't have as much opportunity to experience those things
Yeah, that
outside of the band. When
yeah,
you
that makes
first
sense,
start,
yeah.
yeah, it's just you're doing a band gig and it's just a band thing, and you don't get the opportunity as much to be a musician outside of the circle.
Sure, sure.
Um,
It's fun to have both, and also because
sure,
like, it's not like one is good and the other's bad, they're just
right,
different.
right. It's too, and the competitive pipe band is a validation of your skill. But
Or more often an
uh,
invalidation of your skill or verification of
well,
your lack of skill.
and see that's so
That's my experience anyway. It's usually pretty
exactly.
keeps me humble.
Well, yeah, but and so this is one of the few negatives also. So what other musical genre does that?
Yeah, not a lot of them, that's for sure. None come to my
Right.
mind.
There's to my mind, there's no other musical genre that literally says go go put thousands of hours of practice time into this, and and blood, sweat, and tears, and and personal finances into it, and then you travel to a competition and you get your 5 minutes of fame in front of a person
Right.
who literally is going to tell you everything you did wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and and
totally.
not, and not only are we going to like pay for that, but we're gonna become like rabid over it,
Right,
and
yeah.
we'll there's if you tried to explain competitive pipe band to another musician of just about any genre, they'd be like, "What? What on
Yeah,
earth are you talking? Why on earth would you do that?"
right.
you
I
know,
I have heard people suggest before that, like, maybe you think about the competitive side of pipe band as being more like sports and less
it's
like art, and that's maybe unfair in some ways, but in some ways, I think it makes a lot of sense.
it does, and but it's so bagpipes don't fit into any musical niche, and even in the competitive aspect, so yes, it's much more sport, but in the sports, it's a tape measure or a speed or a
How many
stopwatch.
baskets you made or something like that, right?
Right,
It's
right. It's
yeah,
a stopwatch. There's
yeah,
a measurable quota for setting apart the winner,
yeah,
whereas
totally.
pipe band is still based on opinion and quite literally what the judge hears. You'll have competitive pipe band, one pipe band judge or one piping judge on one side of the circle gives a band first place, and the other piping judge on the other side of the circle gives them fourth place. Well, the
Right.
other guy on the opposite side heard somebody screw up a transition to a tune that the other gentleman did not hear. So there's even within the 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 judging aspect, there's still that variable, and this it's kind of up in the air depending on what the judge hears, what the judge likes.
Yeah.
You have pipe bands now that they find out who's judging a certain games, and they might know that that particular judge likes their jigs a little bit faster, so they
Oh,
kick
yeah,
up
and they'll cater to that.
right, right. There's a fairly prominent judge that did a workshop here. I try not to name names, but that he did a workshop here, and he actually said in the workshop, if you play Itchy Fingers or Cullen Bay, or he listed about five
Hmm.
tunes. He said, I absolutely detest those tunes. If you play any of those tunes in your medley, I promise you, you will not place first.
Oh, I've played for that judge. I know who
Uh-huh.
you're talking
Yes.
about.
Yes. And that's well, wait a minute. If I play that tune, even though you don't like it, but I play it better than any other piper on the day plays
Right.
any other tune that they play, why shouldn't I get first?
Yeah.
That's so there's this huge variable and kind of sliding scale that even in competitive pipe band you can have, and sometimes that works to your advantage, like I said, where you might play the jig a few clicks faster because you know that this particular judge likes that in his jigs, or you avoid a tune. But at the same time, is that truly a fair representation of your musical ability as a piper?
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
again, it's not measurable like sports where the person who throws the the guy who
The
throws
shot the
the
furthest or
caber or the
something.
shot,
Yeah.
yeah, the furthest or the best obviously wins. So there's a certain amount of sterility that you have to have in the piping
Mhm.
competitive world, where
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
you do have to play it within certain parameters. Now, you certainly do have bands that push some of those parameters and things like that, but you can't usually do that in those lower grades like we're all in.
That's for sure,
That's
yeah.
if you're
You
not
gotta earn a
Inverary
right
and
to do
district.
that kinda thing.
Exactly. You got to be shots or field marshal or Inverary to be able to push that envelope and not get crucified when you do it.
Yeah. Well, and there's also the
So
factor, like, I can imagine the Heathen Highlanders occupying a space that, like, it's like a different strokes for different folks kind of situation as well.
sure, right.
In fact, not that long ago, Andrew Douglas said something about how he's the kind of piper who will absolutely take gigs that are like formal, like fancy dinners and funerals and stuff like that. But if somebody wants like a piper to go do a party on St. Patrick's Day in a bar, he doesn't even
Mhm.
take that gig. And it's not that he looks down on it, it's that he's just not that style of person. He doesn't think he could do that. Like, I can't remember
Mm.
exactly how he phrased it, but basically he didn't feel like he could deliver what they wanted well, but
Right,
there are
right.
other pipers who could. And so there's also like a, I don't know, a personality or a disposition thing where like for some people, that party piping is what they actually want to do and will be good
Oh,
at.
sure.
And for some people,
Yep.
that's actually not even attractive. They'd
Right,
much
right.
rather be in the circle.
No, that's yes, there's
And for many of us, there's some of both, of course. Many of us would like to
oh,
do both
sure,
things.
sure. And it's so again in the pipe band world, unfortunately, so the common kid coming in and playing doesn't get to see as much of that more relaxed setting because you're walking in to be a member of the band, and what the band does is those formal sorts of things, right? So
Mm.
you don't see as much of those sorts of gigs. And even the funerals and stuff, Dennis McMaster is the one who taught me with the Salt Lake Scots.
Hmm.
And Dennis was great about, he took me out and he said, "Okay, dress in your church clothes. You just kind of hover in the background and watch me play this funeral." And then we reversed the roles. And
Mm.
he just dressed and he came out and helped me tune, but he just kind of stood back and blended into the funeral while I played. And then he said, "Okay, you're good to go, and you can go do that." And so he took some of those extra steps to ensure that I could do some of those solo gigs properly and well. He'd have me come along as just an extra piper on a few solo gigs that he was doing to kind of mentor and guide through and stuff. And you don't get as some of the pipe bands do that, some of them don't,
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, the common player doesn't get the opportunity to see those sorts of of gigs anywhere near as often
Mm-hmm.
um as what I think they probably should, because those gigs are cool, I mean,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it can be a formal thing like that wedding I played up in Deer Valley,
Mm-hmm.
that's fully formal, but that was such and it's Amazing Grace. It's always the simple, like, totally dumb tunes that just strike people. You don't have to, even playing in the bars, you don't have to play, we don't go in and play fancy jigs and hornpipes. We've figured out that if you play Green Hills and Battles O'er at about 96 beats a minute, so the drunks can bang the mugs on the bar
Yep.
while you're playing it, those tunes are as big a crowd pleaser or bigger than any fancy reel that you could ever crank out. And there are groups that go in and try and be a pipe band in a bar on St. Patrick's Day. You can't walk into a bar and play an MSR. Nobody in the bar cares that that's a cool competition piece. It is a
Right.
cool competition piece and it has its place, but it's not in a bar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's on a competition field. Like you said, that there's some people that just don't even know how to make that transition and that shift from this sort of gig to that sort of a gig. So
Yeah.
that's we kind of specialize in oddball gigs. We do naturally on St. Patrick's Day. We're busy. I think we
Yeah,
played.
busy on St. Patrick's Day for sure.
Yeah, we did 86 different gigs on St. Patrick's Day. I was running.
Man, that's
I had I
amazing.
had I had 5 groups running in Salt Lake. At one point in the evening, I had 5 groups out playing in 5 separate bars all at the same time. And then I had a gentleman up in Park City, and then I had a small group up in Ogden. So at one point, I actually had 7 groups going for a good portion of St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
Did you go out and play, or were you just like mission command at
no,
in your
I'm
office, just calling people, telling them where to go next?
nope, I'm out there.
Yeah.
I've got one group, and I'm in between. I'm fielding all the calls saying, "Hey, we got delayed here. We're running a few minutes behind."
Right.
And I kind of I've got the schedule of where everybody's at, so I can call and say, "Hey, so and so can't make this one. You're close in between gig 3 and 4. Can you run over and play this one and then jump back into your schedule, because your schedule has a little bit of a gap later on." I mission control it from the steering wheel of my car as I'm driving between bars.
Yeah.
So, but
All
it's
right,
fun.
on.
So
So then, Michael, take me back then. By the way, do you go by Mike, or is it always Michael?
I'll answer to anything.
Yeah, anything.
Yep,
well, that leaves the door wide open.
It does. Again, there are some names that are not suitable for podcasts.
Right, yeah. well, then I want to hear about those earlier days when you first started playing when you were 16, and maybe also what led up to that. Like, did you have family members who played pipes? Did you play other instruments and other kinds of music? How did you, when did you first hear the bagpipes? Let's start there. When do you remember first ever hearing the bagpipes?
Oh my gosh, I remember. I don't have a specific moment, but so we always used to go down and camp out for the 24th of July parade. You used to be able to just camp on the street there, the night before.
Which, for anybody outside of Utah listening, that if that sounds weird, because it's not the 4th of July, the 24th of July, that's when Utah became a state. So that's
yes, it's our state founding day.
It's fireworks all month long in July for us here in Utah.
Yes, sounds a little like like World War One, France and Belgium,
Seriously though,
all
like
month
every
long.
night, every single night. It's not like just
Oh,
on the 4th and then the 24th. The firework ban is lifted between as well, so it's just
yep.
every night the teenagers are out shooting stuff off.
It's just nonstop artillery for most of the month.
Yeah.
Yep. So we would Grandma had my grandmother on my mother's side had a relative that lived downtown. My grandmother on my mother's side is a Livingston, as in Dr. Livingston, I presume. So I had a
That
direct Scottish.
Livingston.
Yes,
That's
I
pretty
had a
cool, man.
direct line to Scottish ancestry there, and had
That's
done
awesome.
some. Had been to some family reunions and things like that, and naturally heard about the Scottish history and even heard pipes at a few of them. But you used to be able to camp out downtown for the parade the night before, and my family knew that the morning of the parade I would be there up until the bagpipe band walked by, and I would literally just walk along with the band.
Oh, really?
I'd march along with the band all the way down to Liberty Park. The family knew that they'd come down and find me at Liberty Park, hanging out where the bagpipers were.
At that time, was it the Salt Lake Scots only, or was the Utah Pipe Band started as well by
Oh my
then?
gosh, I'm not even. Oh no, yeah, they've both been around
They both, yeah.
I think that Utah Pipe Band just recently celebrated their 75th year.
See, I'm just trying to make you feel like you're 100 years old, Mike. That's
Right,
by asking
right.
that.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty that does that to me on a daily basis. But and I'm not. There were probably multiple bands at that point that played in the parade. But whichever the first one was, I'd march along with them and just listen. So I just loved the sound. It was just something that you know how bagpipes they do. They reach in and they find that primeval part of you, and they just grab a hold of it with both hands and
Yeah,
yank
yeah,
it out.
man.
Right. You either run away from bagpipes or you
Or
run
toward
towards them.
them, yeah.
And I'm very much in the run towards them camp.
Yeah, it's true.
Even at that point. So anyway, I always had this fascination and this love of the sound, and naturally at that point you couldn't just go on the internet and pull up pipes. So when you did hear them, there was an event that was going on. There was something special that was taking place. Um, but years later, I was 16 and I was up in the Heber Valley, and there was a massive scout jamboree taking place up there. And they happened to have a member of the Salt Lake Scots that was piping in the flag. His name was Jack Love, and he got done, and there's literally 5,000 Boy Scouts up there, and he got done, and he's done with his part, so he starts beelining it for the car, and I'm like 16 years old trying to run along swimming behind him like like a guy in the movie chasing somebody down a crowded New York street, pushing my way through 5,000 Boy Scouts, and I literally caught up to him at his car finally, and I said, "Where did you learn how to do this? How can I learn?" And he said, "Well, the guy that taught me leads one of the bagpipe bands in Salt Lake," and he gave me his name, Dennis McMaster. And I didn't have anything to write it down, so I had to commit it to memory. Anyway, I got home from the camp a day or two later, and went to the good old. This will date me more than. Went to the good old white pages, and flipped through and found out that Dennis McMaster only lived about a mile and a half from my house.
Yeah.
So called him up and said, "Are you the Dennis McMaster that is in charge of a bagpipe band?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And got lessons going on from there, and I went crazy over it. I was that first lesson, he hands me a practice chanter, and I'm like, what is this? And he's like,
that's not what you had in mind.
right. No, I want to play bagpipes. I don't want to play this fluty thing. And he's like, well, this is how you start. And right then and there, I said, okay, this isn't a bagpipe. I want to be a bagpipe player, so I'm going to get through this as quick and as hard as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was actually, I don't, I had a very patient mother that
Mm. A
allowed
necessary
me,
component for anybody learning bagpipes.
yeah, um, that allowed me to dive full on into my passion and and not as a bragging point, but I literally spent just every waking minute that I didn't have a chore or schoolwork or something with that practice chanter in my hand,
Mm.
just hammering it and getting it down. I was actually voted into the band playing most of the repertoire 6 months after I picked up a practice chanter.
Jeez,
Playing them on pipes, playing the repertoire on pipes.
that's where you've got the combination of a kid who therefore doesn't have to like go to work and stuff like that. You got the
Right.
time, but then also like just insane levels of commitment and brain plasticity. Because I mean that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I uh, I would go over to and Dennis was patient as all get out as well. I would
Mm-hmm.
go over to his house at 9 o'clock Saturday morning and say, "Okay, I need a new exercise or whatever." Um, and he well, so Clumsy Lover. That tune was I wanted that tune so bad.
Hmm.
Um,
I don't
and so
blame you. That's a great one. Yeah.
he kind of held that over my head a little bit.
Oh, that was
Well,
like the
you got
treat
to
for
do
later.
this and right, you got to do this and this and this and this and this. I went over one Saturday and said probably around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and I said, "Okay, what have I got to do?" And he said, "Okay, well, here's these last three things. I don't remember whether they were band tunes or whether they were exercises or what. Here's these last three things that, and when you can pass those off to me properly, I will, we'll sit down and we'll do Clumsy Lover."
Mm.
I said, "Okay." So I took those three things. I called him an hour and a half later and said, "Okay." And he's like, "No, no, no." And I said, "No, really? Yeah, I no, yes." And he's like, "Okay, come on over." And yeah, no, no, I just don't set your hopes very high because I'm gonna be hard on you. And I said, "Okay,
Yeah.
great, you can." And I walked in and I sat down and I played those three things again. I don't remember whether they were band tunes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I believe that one or two of them were, but I played them at tempo correctly and everything.
He couldn't
And
deny you.
and I was like, "Okay, what did I do wrong?" And he's like, "Hold on, let me go get the music." And so he dug out
That's so
Clumsy Lover.
funny, man.
I mean, I was just insanely rabid over it. My mother said that there was one Saturday that she carried a little stopwatch, and every time she heard my practice channel going, she'd click it so to keep track of the time. And and she said that I logged somewhere around 19 hours
Sheesh.
of practice chanter time that particular Saturday.
Wow.
Like I buzzed through the chores and everything really quick, and then I'd just sit down and she'd call me up and say, "You gonna come and have lunch, or are you just?" I literally didn't even think to eat. I was just devouring
Hmm.
the music so quick and so fast that I nothing else even registered. I I just was again. I thought I don't want to play this little flute thing. This is dumb. I want to be a bagpiper. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I jumped in and said, if they're going to make me do this, I'm going to get through it as quick as I can. He gave me the whole packet of exercises, and there were 50 something exercises. And I went home and I broke them down. And I said, if I do three a day, I can be through this in about 6 weeks. He's like,
Wow,
"Oh,
man.
okay, yeah, whatever." But but I I also came in at a really good time. Um, the Salt Lake Scots actually had some workshops that were going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that that when I started, I actually learned how to play GDEs from Colin McClellan.
Oh yeah.
They had him out doing a Pembroke workshop. So I actually learned how to play GDEs from one of the like, and it just happened to be the you know the overlap was there. Um, so I got to sit down and have a very, very basic private lesson with Colin McClellan. Um, but to see him play and to hear him play, just was, fuel to the fire for that passion and that drive of wanting to uh, to do that and to get
Yeah.
up on pipes. So that was that's kind of how I got going, I would not recommend to most people diving in that hard, but like you said, being 16, don't have a job, you can devote that every waking minute to something like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. No, but had you done any sort of musical education before that, or was this your first time with any kind of music?
my mother played string bass in the Granite
Mm.
Youth Symphony. Um,
Mm.
so in fourth grade, I had taken maybe 8 months of string bass, but that was it. I didn't even remember how to read music um,
Mm.
when I first picked up, which sometimes I think is, in teaching folks after the fact. I think that sometimes not having a lot of musical knowledge is helpful with pipes, because pipes are such a odd beast. They do sit
Mm.
outside of, I mean, the written form of music is something we utilize now, but it really hasn't. We've only been utilizing that for about a century,
Yeah, something of a
yeah,
recent
yes,
thing. Yeah.
century and a half, which in the over the course of a 3,000-year-old instrument is really like, that's still in its infancy. Converting converting the writing styles over to bagpipe rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
You didn't, you had to um, because pipes don't fit any conventional norms for for music standards, right? Um,
Yeah, I think that's some of the ideas behind sort of like rediscovering proper original older ways of playing Pembroke, or Barry
mhm.
Shear's book, Play It Like You Sing It, right? This idea that, like,
Right.
in fact, who was it? There was somebody else. I think it was Stuart Little, maybe. Who, maybe this has nothing to do with like the philosophy of it, right? But I think that I remember reading him, maybe one of Stephanie Burns' books, that he wait, yeah, Stephanie Burns, that's right.
Mm.
That he when he's learning a tune, he'll sing it first. Just there's something about that singing that seems to affect our playing. And if it used to be something that was taught orally, where you'd
Right.
talk about
Right.
it and sing about it, and then you'd put it on the instrument, then
Exactly.
that sheet music, clearly a useful tool, but maybe sometimes tools can kind of get in the way a little bit, between the person and the expression or something like that.
Sure. Sure. Well, and when you flip open the original Scots Guards books
Hmm.
and then some of those older ones, oh my gosh, the grace notes that they pack into those
Mm.
are no, nobody actually plays them that way, right? They
Yeah.
don't play them. I think that the pipers and the composers were like, I gotta impress everybody, so we're gonna put a doubling on every note, right? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and that actually, at some point, you can over embellish a tune to the point that you destroy some of that musicality. That's um, I get asked about tunes all the time, particularly for funerals, like hymns and things like that. And I'll actually um, look up and find the words to it. Um, and if it converts over to pipes, I don't actually write it down. I more get the wording, and I'll put the embellishments in to to emphasize some of that vocal stuff. Like
Oh, that's interesting.
Amazing Grace is Amazing Grace, how sweet, that we put the throw on D on that D. That's how sweet the sound.
Yeah.
Well, that low G is the sw, right?
Hmm.
That's the vocal component, that lends that embellishment. Rather than calling them grace notes, I try and call them embellishments, because you are embellishing the melody
Sure.
with those grace notes. So yeah, I'll look through the lyrics of a song,
Yeah.
before I try and play it, and try and interject those embellishments in ways, because you can just play it like a piper and put
Hmm.
in embellishments in proper spots, or you can play it more like an opera singer or somebody would sing it, and interject those embellishments where that
That's a
natural vocal, hint would come out, right?
Yeah, that is a really interesting practice. Like that really lights up something in my imagination. I want to try something like that out. That like cuz like I have encountered like some composers putting together tunes for pipes that, you know, they might be pulling from um old church music that was in Latin or something
Hmm.
like that. And so
Right.
then they'll try to kind of mimic where the consonants fall by
Hmm.
using
Right.
taps or something like that. And that also is interesting and feels kind of mathematical in a way, like in an interesting
Hmm.
way. Again, I'm not saying like one thing is better than the other. There's just it's slightly different to like look through the lyrics and kind of like find emphasis. It's like
Right. Right.
this is really interesting. It makes me think of like when I was talking to Andrew O'Sullivan, that like if you know the origin language for some of these tunes and you know the words that were being sung along, that informs the way you play the song in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Your phrasing becomes less pipe band and more church hymn, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
There is a very definitive way, and this is jumping back to, the there is creative expression within a pipe band, but everybody is playing to the creative expression of the pipe major. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
sure. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and okay, you can people can have some influence on how the pipe major plays it, but ultimately it's the pipe major's expression that everybody is now trying to follow.
And naturally there's going to be some tightening of that expression just so that the group can do it all together.
Right, right. But the some of the newer pipers and stuff that come in that don't don't understand that, or nobody really stops and explains it out.
Mm.
You just get told, "Well, play exactly what he's playing."
Mhm.
Um, so you don't get as much of an opportunity to develop some of that musical expression, unless you're doing, some solo, competing and things like that.
Sure.
You learn to interject a little bit of that expression into solo pieces, because now it's up to you to express that the way it makes sense to you. But yeah, there's a lot of hymns and stuff that just it makes much more sense when you, and when I'm playing them, I'm actually singing the lyrics in my head. um
Mm. Mm.
I just actually had to speak in church, and I got permission, to play my pipes as part of it, and played, a poor wayfaring man of grief, um, as part of my talk. Um,
Mm.
but you have to express it as a hymn rather than as a bagpipe tune.
That is
Um,
really interesting.
which is, and some people won't understand what I mean by that, um, but you want to take it out of the formal band setting, and literally take it into to church, and make it something that the common person sitting in a pew can listen to, and can hear that hymn come out in your playing.
Mhm.
You
You
know,
know, it
it's subtle, but it is a different musical style.
right.
It's not the same.
There are some musicians outside of piping that like have really they really impress me. Like their music really gets into my heart, and it's not, I can't necessarily articulate exactly why, but I feel like with the ones I'm thinking of is like, as far as guitarists go, like David Gilmour, Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Hmm.
Jimi Hendrix, of course, that like they're sometimes when they are playing, I think maybe the strongest example that comes to my mind is David Gilmour's solo on "Comfortably Numb." Um,
Hmm.
that like it's yeah, I want to say lyrical. Maybe lyrical isn't the right word for it because there aren't lyrics there, but it's like they're saying things and
Through the notes, right?
right, and there, it even comes up in other genres too, like in some gypsy swing and jazz music, where it sounds like there's a conversation happening. There's something
Hmm.
very much like mimicking human speech, and
Right,
of course that's going to resonate. It's just, I guess my origins in piping are very formal competition pipe band, and so it's not like this is very much a new thing that's unfolding for me, right? That
right,
even some of the tunes I've learned have behind them a kind of history or a different way of playing them. Maybe if I knew the words to, I don't know, some of the tunes don't all have lyrics, of course, but maybe if
right,
I
right,
knew the lyrics, behind, what does Baron Rocks have lyrics? I don't know. I'm just trying to think of any common march that would have lyrics. Maybe if I knew the
right,
lyrics, it could inform how I would play it as a soloist, and maybe that would be really interesting and an interesting way to
right.
go back to these tunes that I've kind of gone on to autopilot with.
But well, even Minstrel Boy and Wearing of the
Hmm.
Green and
There you go. They're the ones that
you
have
know,
lyrics. Yeah.
yeah, those all have. As a matter of fact, there's about 8 different lyrical versions of Wearing of the Green.
Mm.
There's 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 um, there's one called the Orange and the Green that that's a comedic set of lyrics where a young man has one parent that's
Oh yeah, I've heard that
Protestant
one.
and one
Yeah.
parent that's Catholic, Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, those sorts of and pipe band. You mentioned that there's almost a conversation going on. Pipe music is constructed that way. You
Mm-hmm.
have you have the phrase and then you have the answer. You have the first two
Mm.
measures that are the question, and then you have the answer. Then you ask the question again, and then you have the final answer and the final
What a good
phrase.
point. Yeah.
I mean, so that uh, pipe band music quite literally is constructed as a conversation.
Yeah.
But you lose those talking that conversation aspect when you delve too heavy into the um, the hardcore competitive aspect. So back in when I first started, there was a shift taking place in the pipe band world. You had all the prolific judges, and all of the biggest judges were the old staunch military guys
Mm.
that had learned in the Queen's regiments and things like that. So you had this very strict, very structured, regimented way that the judges thought it needed to be. But then you had guys like Jack and Terry Lee
Right.
and and Darth Vader, his name from Field
Darth
Marshal,
Vader. Yeah.
yeah, uh, and Neil Dickey and all of these guys that were Bill Livingston was 78th
Mm.
that were starting to try and interject this musical, almost Kaylee-esque
Mm.
feel into the pipe band stuff, and you got so much kickback from those old staunch military guys
Yeah.
um, that so you didn't see that shift in the piping world until probably it was well it was they were trying to interject it 35 years ago, but you really saw it change about 25 years ago.
Mm.
um, I used to I went down to so the Pleasanton Highland Games used to be the Santa Rosa Highland Games. They were held at the Santa Rosa Fairgrounds on Labor Day weekend, and that was the big West Coast Championships, the San Francisco Caledonian Club
Mm.
games. Um, and they'd always fly in some big band and stuff, and I enjoyed listening to the grade ones because they were technically so bang on, but
Mm.
I actually loved listening to the grade twos because they were pushing those musical envelopes.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was not as technically correct as the grade ones, but it also wasn't as technically sterile either. The grade ones still weren't. They were still a little bit of hesitant to push those musical boundaries,
Mm.
because the older Scottish regimental judges were very set in how they were catering it to the judges that they were playing for, right?
Sure,
You
yeah.
know that, but the grade twos were out there pushing and just trying to hype up the crowd, and I loved listening to the grade two bands over and even over and above the grade ones. The grade ones were cool, and you could listen to them and be impressed at the technical aspect. But if you wanted music and swing and something that you just wanted to like tap your foot to, you listened to those grade two bands.
Hmm.
That was because they had much more of that lyrical, sing-songy sound in their music, and in the way they played.
Huh.
So
So then, Michael, I'm curious what you think. Like, if you were seeing that kind of shift when you got started, do you see that shift continuing in the same trajectory right now? Do you see new trends? Like, what do you think? I guess maybe like, what do you feel like the future of piping holds, and what gets you excited today? Are there any things that are surprising you or making you feel like you can't wait to see where it goes? Anything like that?
I think that trajectory is actually picked up. I think that
Hmm.
that speed has built up because you do have the Jack and Terry Lees, you have um, Stuart Liddell, you have even Robert Matheson. Robert Matheson used to, shots would he'd literally write three-fourths. He'd throw in two or three trad tunes, and the rest was all original compositions that he
Hmm.
put together for their competition medleys, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you're starting to see that musicality, be commonplace. As a
Hmm.
matter of fact, if you can't put that musicality in, you're at this point you're not competitive at those higher levels.
That's
Um,
interesting. It went from maybe being kind of taboo to being a necessary element.
it has. As a matter of
Hmm.
fact, I just Eric Evanhughes,
Yeah.
just sent me a link to a medley of Inverary, and just stellar. That E that they hit right at the first is just this brick wall of sound that just slams into you. It's awesome. But about two-thirds of the way through the medley, um, they actually cut the chanters out
Whoa, really?
collectively. Yeah, collectively as the band for just 2 seconds. It's a shift from one tune into the next, and all you hear is just the chanters all just suddenly go silent, and you just hear that solid, and the drones don't waver or anything.
That's impressive.
And then they kick right into the next tune.
I haven't
And
heard this medley. My goodness.
I'll have to see if I can shoot you a link or something. But
Yeah.
I literally would just, you sit up and you go, oh wait, did they just do that in a
Yeah.
competition circle? Oh,
Uh,
you know, I, sometimes in music, the note that you don't play can be as impactful as the note that you do play, right?
for
Uh,
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Bagpipes, we don't have the benefit of rests and pauses.
Right.
So when you hear that, your brain automatically goes, what was that? What,
Yeah.
um, um, but yeah, they actually put a break in their competition set.
Hmm.
Um, where they cut the channels out. That sort of thing is cool. That's gonna, I think that you'll see, um, that sort of stuff coming in, and that's cool and exciting, and gives, gives pipers still something to push towards and aspire to, right? I mean, it's
Mm.
it's not enough to simply cut your chanter out, but you had to having to maintain that drone sound at that same level and things like that. There's there's always something that you can be striving for and looking for, and I think that musical aspect. You listen to the medleys of Field Marshal and Inverary and SFU and the musical transitions and the time
Hmm.
signature changes and things like that. Um, it's really easy for people who don't know much about pipe music to tune it out after a certain amount of time, because there's only
Sure.
9 notes, right?
Yeah.
There's just not, and you can't have the sharps, the flats, the rests, things like that that you get in other music. So these guys that are coming out and doing all of this, all of the composing and the construction of the medleys and things that, and they're pushing those musical envelopes, and they're writing whole entire bridge phrases from tune A into tune B, so that it's not just you end this tune and start this tune. They literally flow together.
Right. Yeah.
Um, it almost becomes hard to differentiate from when one tune stops and the next tune starts.
Oh yeah, you use some
That's
of those transitions where they actually like overlap 4 bars
Oh
of two
yeah.
tunes and stuff like
Hmm.
that. That's so
And
cool.
yeah, it's awesome. And me as a piper coming up in I just go, whose brain even thinks like that? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's 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 like you listen to Mozart and you go, how on earth could one person pull all
Hmm.
of this out of the air, right? But so you are getting a lot of those those and I don't want this to sound wrong, but they're more musicians than they're musicians that happen to play bagpipes rather than pipers that are striving to be musicians. Does that make sense?
I think that makes sense. Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it can also be taken in the most charitable way possible, understanding that
Right.
you're not somebody who's being critical of competitive
No.
piping. You love it,
No.
and so
No.
in especially
It's
in that context, yeah, I think that makes sense.
but it's you're getting away from that regimented
Hmm.
hardcore, and that regimented hardcore beat and stuff still has a very, very proper place. You watch
For sure.
the coronation of the king, and even the queen's funeral and things like that, and seeing the pipe bands march through the streets. That is all still um, very proper and very traditional, and certainly has its place. But seeing the edges of the competition envelope being pushed is cool and exciting. I'm still waiting for the day when a band goes out and plays an MSR and you hear harmonies in the Strathspey. At
Mm.
that point, I think we will have
We'll reach
have
some kind of peak there, huh?
have transcended something.
Yeah.
The MSR is still the hardcore traditional
Yeah.
genre, and that's fine to have that. I think that there's a lot of very cool tunes, two four marches, and Strathspeys, and certainly reels that that uh, could be made a little bit more musical in some of those, with some harmonies and some counterpoints and things like that could go on. I think that eventually at some point you'll see some of that creep into even MSR competitions. We're,
Hmm.
we're we're not there yet. Nobody's ready to break that sacred egg yet. But
Yet.
but the the innovation and the musicality that you see coming out in in the medleys and things is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, and you also have guys like Gordon Duncan that are doing things like, I mean, you hear Gordon Duncan play Thunderstruck.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
I get asked for Thunderstruck in the bars on occasion, and I'm
I
like,
get asked
whoa,
for
no,
that one too
that
sometimes. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry, I can't do
the
it.
that's a double Black Diamond tune. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
working on it, but the
Yeah.
fingers aren't
I
quite
you
there
and me
yet.
both, man. You and me both
Yeah,
wish that we could play that. Yeah.
yeah. So you get some guys that are taking these totally non pipe tunes and converting them over to really cool little pieces, and that sort of thing is certainly helping and pushing that envelope,
Yeah.
um, within the pipe band scene, but also within the common man scene, where it's bringing pipes a little bit more, um, into into the realm of the common guy who doesn't listen to bagpipes all that often. You know, you hear thunderstruck
Right.
on a
Yeah.
bagpipe and they go, "Wait, was that AC/DC? Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
What?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
I think that piping is it's kind of a steam train rolling down the hill, you know, without the brakes.
that's a good
It's
joke. I like that. I
yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
that piping pun there. That's good.
Yep. Um, it's
Is it a
fun
steam
to
train or is it a hellbound train though? That's the question.
that depends on what's at the bottom of the hill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but and you know that's another band that you know
Yeah. Victoria
Victoria
Police.
Police, they were pushing the fact that they fell apart was so tragic. They were one of my favorite bands to listen to.
Master
um,
Blasters is an album that I listened holes through when I was a kid for sure.
oh
Like
yeah,
very very formative, very big deal.
I had just started piping um, maybe a year when 78th Frasers took the Worlds away from
Mhm.
the Scottish bands for the very first time.
Mhm.
So that Live in Motherwell album, I wore out 3 cassettes and 2 CDs of that
Hmm.
album. Um, yeah, that one was, and I've worn out one copy of Master Blasters. Master Blasters
Yeah.
was an awesome CD. Phil Marshall, you know, the FM concert live at Motherwell as well.
Mhm.
That's where you're seeing that musical, um, that musical element to piping start to just break through the dam, break through the floodgates,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it's awesome. I think that's very much the way it needs to go, and again, still keeping some of the traditional elements like the MSRs and the street marches and things like that. Certainly, that's all part of the history of the instrument. That's in the DNA fabric of how and why we all love pipes. So you don't do away with that, but you can build upon it.